Hi guys, welcome to your first reading mini lesson. So the reading mini lessons are going to focus on one specific question or maybe a couple specific questions from the practice test. But in order to best understand the question, you will have had to read the entire passage. And since this lesson focuses on question 47, go ahead and read question 47. I have it up here. Now's a good time to pause this video and to try to figure out the answer on your own. Try to understand not just why the answer is right that you think is right, but also why all three other answers are wrong. And then when you think that you get it, then let's move on and go ahead and unpause the video. What's the first thing that we do? Well, we read the question, and the question's telling us to go to a specific line, line 35. So I have line 35 up here. Go ahead and read it to yourself. You can see I didn't include all of line 35, all of the sentence that starts at line 35. I only have the first part of that sentence. And that's because I didn't think that there were any context clues that were going to be helpful after this point. You can do the same thing in your head. So what do we think? Do we have enough information within the context of line 35 to say how the word postulate is being used? To me, the only thing that jumps out about line 35 is that they use the word further. We further postulate. And then they give whatever the postulation is, right? Whatever it is they're doing, the proper dosage necessary to prevent mite infestation, etc., etc. But that further draws my attention. So I'm thinking that there's something earlier in this passage in which they're postulating, originally. They're doing an original postulation. Does anyone remember seeing the word postulate earlier in this passage? It's in there. In fact, it's in the exact same paragraph. They say, in particular, we postulate that the problem is a diet deficient in anti-mite toxins. And then if you back up even further in the same paragraph, the topic sentence is, we suspect that the bees of commercial bee colonies, which are fed monocrops, are nutritionally deficient. In particular, we postulate. That in particular is really critical. In particular basically means you take an idea, right? We suspect, and then a particular idea that you suspect, and then you're breaking it down into the particulars, into the specifics. You're going into more detail. So it's like you're suspecting, but in an even more detailed way. So postulate and suspect are being used very similarly here. And postulate is being used as a way to particularly suspect something. This is some really helpful context clues for us. This is a good time to go back to the question and see if we have enough information to answer it now. What do you think? Maybe pause the video while you think about it. For me, I think that there's at least one answer that I can definitely remove, one answer choice, that I can cross off and say it's definitely not this one. I don't think it's answer choice D. Why don't I think it's D? Because here they're talking about concluding based on firm evidence, and we just saw the word suspect being used. And if you suspect something, you might have an inkling about it, right? But you don't have firm evidence. You're not concluding it for sure. And since postulate and suspect are being used alongside each other, I don't think it can be D. But let's say we're not ready to answer this question yet. We don't have enough information. Where else in this passage can we go to figure out how they're using the word postulate? Go ahead and look at line 42. It's actually the first line at the top of the page on the right-hand side of the page. They say, this hypothesis can best be tested by a trial. So here they're using the word hypothesis. We have a couple of words, suspect, hypothesis, that go with postulate, right? It's the verb for what the authors are doing. They're making a hypothesis. And so I think this is now enough information for us to feel confident that we can find the answer. So we've already decided that D is not the correct answer. But let's look at C, question of belief or theory. I do not believe the answer is C because there isn't a particular belief or theory that is stated at the beginning of this passage or somewhere in this passage that's being questioned, that's being answered or responded to or questioned. And so that's why the answer is not C. In fact, it's the authors that are putting out their theory, right? They're not questioning anybody else's theories. And is it A, make an unfounded assumption? Well, you could say any hypothesis is an unfounded assumption, right? Except assumption's not really the right word, is it? When you just assume something, it's almost like, well, you don't have any information for it. There's nothing to back it up. Unfounded, there's really nothing there. It's almost a guess. But in this case, that's not what's happening, right? They are making a hypothesis, they're suspecting something, they're going to test something because they have information to support their hypothesis. And this is kind of where the science aspect comes in to play, because a hypothesis does typically have a postulate, right? Something that you want to try to prove, an idea or a theory that you're going to test. And there typically is, it's not just an assumption. There is typically something to support that particular theory, and that's why you go to you even bother to test it at all, right? And so that's why unfounded assumption doesn't really capture what these authors are making. What they're making is an idea, a hypothesis, a claim, and they're putting it forth so that it can be tested and analyzed and discussed. And that is why the answer is B. Let me know if it doesn't make any sense to you, if you're still confused. And then go ahead and try some other words in context type questions in the reading sections. Let me know if you need any help finding support for the way in which a particular word is being used. Take care and talk to you soon.